the fourth commandment, which is observing the Sabbath, which is really a station of rest. It's not just, a Sunday where you just sit and rest. It doesn't work that way. It means that everything that you do in life has to come from a place of rest, where you have no ambitions, you have no desires, you're moved by something else. It's in Taoism they call it, action through non-action. That you're just sitting there. You're not going to move unless you're inspired. But you just have to keep in mind that those moments, and there are going to be a lot of moments where you're just not inspired. Nothing in life moves you. Nothing in life touches you. Nothing in life inspires you. And you have to be okay with that. I'm not sure if any of these ideas have any practical application or not. I'm not sure if anyone can go home and say, okay, well, I'm going to, plan to do A, B, C, D so I can get to this other place where and I think in many ways it's unfair to tell people that if they do A, B, C, D, they can get to the destination that they want to get to. This is not like a toaster that you can sell people, and I think it's it's like instead of asking a question about joy, you could have asked, I've read the dialogues of Plato, and I've read some stories about Socrates here and there. How can I be Socrates? I don't really know what the answer is. I don't know what anybody can say. Sure, I can say, well, Socrates ran into a woman and she only taught him about love. And I don't know what Socrates had that received that so well, so healthily, that didn't, contaminate and corrupt him. I don't know what sort of a love that was, that he was so uncaring for his wife and his children. I don't know what kind of a love that was inside him that made him so uncaring about existence itself, because in the end he just died. I don't know how you go about learning those things. And if you find someone like Socrates to be a human being who had a good amount of stability and courage and wisdom and joy in him, if you want to call it joy, the truth is, I don't think there's a how-to. I think the best thing you can do is, it's kind of like you look at your skin and you say, I'm a little pale. I see the sun out there and I want to be tan a little. And then you go sit under the sun and you enjoy the heat very much. It's warm, it's a nice day, and you're sweating and your skin is slowly becoming bronze. And then you look at the sun and you become so envious of the sun. And you say, how can I become the sun? And the truth is, why do you want to be so greedy? Just enjoy being under the sun, for 5, 10, 20 minutes. Find joy in that, because once, the sun sets, the only joy you can have is playing with the memories that, yes, you were in the sun for 5, 10 hours. Now the moon is out and it's completely dark, and you have to kind of go through all this longing, this separation anxiety, that you have to wait another day or so for the sun to come out, and you're anxiously waiting, and then you wake up to go meet the sun, and it's cloudy. And then you look at the forecast and it says, sorry, cloudy for the next 5 weeks. There could be another trick to all of this. I watched the movie The Tender Bar with Ben Affleck. It's on Prime. It is such a good movie. He plays the character of an uncle. Or the movie Whiplash. Or Scent of a Woman. Or maybe the first Matrix. And what all these movies have in common is that they truly engage you. They capture you. It's like being in the theaters, and you're watching this movie, and all of a sudden you realize you have to go to the bathroom. But the movie is so good that you say, no. I don't care if I pee my pants. I'm just going to sit here and watch this. What you have is your bladder is full and you're in pain, but there is this movie that's inspiring you, and this inspiration is able to overcome the physical pain. And in that you find meaning, and in that meaning you find joy, in that joy you find rest. Once the movie is done, you just run to the bathroom, and you do what you need to do, and while you're having pizza and at Pizza Kitchen, you just sit and talk about the movie. So I guess the point is, if you can't be a source where, if you can't be a source where people are consumed by you, find a place where you can be consumed by something. If you can't be Al Pacino, go watch Al Pacino. Until you ripen, you mature as a human being, where you can kind of just be your own Al Pacino. I think it's in the Gospel of Mark, when Jesus tells everybody that he's going to die, disciples begin to fight. So when he dies, who's going to take over? And it's one of those things, where envy kind of is born, and you have to be very careful, because it has the power to kind of contaminate and just poison this pursuit that you've had, that started so honestly and sincerely. And your question to some extent is an expression of the culture and the times in which we live. People, would not ask such questions for the longest time in our history. You kind of get married, you have children, you go to church or the mosque or the synagogue or a temple, you listen to a chant, you listen to a sermon, you come home and that's it. Your life for the most part, it's full. Not full because it's immensely meaningful, it's just full. You're busy all the time. The culture, has made almost everybody so miserable and so empty, hollow from within, that you can really no longer trust anything that you're doing. And especially as you get older, you just don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And you become, very cautious. Should I go out with a guy who is good looking but poor, or should I go with someone who is not very good looking but rich? Because I'm not really quite sure what to do anymore. And there's so many mixed messages that you get from the environment. There was a movie, The English Patient. I don't know if you ever saw it. The nurse had fallen in love with this man whose face and his body was burnt, And of course the man was in love with some guy's wife who tried to kill him because he had come to realize that, they love each other. It's first you're a nurse, you're taking care of a man who just looks bad. His skin just feels bad to touch. But throughout the entire movie almost, she takes care of him so lovingly, and she finds joy in that she has found someone to love in sickness or in health. And there are lots of other people around. And she protects him. She doesn't love him romantically, but she just loves, who he is and what he has done. And maybe that's the trick, find someone, something you love, and just do it. But you better love the right way, otherwise it'll backfire. I don't know if you talked about this last week, but I remember near the ending of the movie Zoro, where the old Zoro accuses the young Zoro of just being a thief, someone who is just inwardly very cheap. And the young Zoro looks at the old Zoro and says, you need to come and help me if you want to rescue these people. He says, no. I did my time, I was once young, I helped people, and what did it get me? There was a time that The old Zoro, when he was young and vigorous and energetic, he could go out and fight 50 people and help a lot of people. Now he has lost all of his vigor. And he says, okay, well, I'm a 70-year-old man and I helped all these people. Look where I am. My wife is dead. My daughter is gone. I'm no longer young. And so I think as time passes and as you find yourself in a different stage of life, your definition of what brought you joy also begins to change. So, تا جوانی تو توانی سخت کوش چون جوانی رفت آن عقل هوش. You can really do things when you're young. When you get a little older, it's finished. Jackie? It's awful, isn't it? You know this better than I. The French playwright Jean Anouilh, he wrote his own version of Antigone by Sophocles. In his version, Antigone is about 12 or 13, and looks at his father and says, so you have given me money, you have given me food, you have given me shelter, you give me education, you give me all the stuff so that I could become an adult, so I could be like the rest of you. And the father doesn't say anything, he just kind of listens and he says, the adult world really, really sucks. I'd rather die at the age of 12 than to live to be like the rest of the people. And it's an interesting idea because all of a sudden she has this really profound insight about the innocence of being 12 and the toxin that lives inside adults. And she says, maybe my joy is being here no more, is by committing suicide, Maybe there is just something wrong with us, that we enjoy the lessons of Socrates and the Buddha and Lao Tzu and Confucius and Muhammad and Jesus, because their philosophies are all miserable. And yet we find joy. I mean, it makes us, I don't know what it is about the things that they have said, their ideas, So yeah, listen, find the miserable philosophy and, then make a home inside there. Buy some sofas and just sit, in darkness and drink dark coffee. And make sure your blinds are always shut where you don't see the sun, and you sit there and write poetry.
Sounds about right.
You know, I sometimes wonder how these construction folks feel. You know, they go to Home Depot, they haul all this lumber in their trucks, and they go to this vacant lot and they begin to build this beautiful, beautiful house. They're really engaged, you know. I mean, 2x4 studs or 2x6, the nail guns, you know. And then little by little, you know, this house comes together. And you've been working on it for like, I don't know, 2 years with your crew. And then you clean up. And then you call the owner and says, I think it's done, come take a look. And then, you know, the guy gives you the rest of your money, and then you go back to your apartment. And most of, you know, these workers are really decent people. They're not going to say, well, you know, I like what I built. I don't know why it can't be mine. You know, tonight I'm just going to go over there and just cut off his head and just live in that house. They're quite happy by just getting their money and going to a different job. None of the things that they built belongs to them. But sometimes I sit in my office when I just can't bring myself to writing. I'm so exhausted. And I just do that. You know, I sit back and watch on YouTube, you know, videos of these people, you know, roofing or framing. And or couples, you know, who live in Wyoming, you know, on like 50 acres. And the husband, the wife, and the 4 kids are building this house together. It is such a gift, you know, that you find so much happiness, fulfillment in creating and building something, and then once it's finished, you just kind of walk away. But you have to be good at what you're doing. You know, and you know, consider, for example, someone like Jesus. You know, I mean, he runs into who? Peter, the rock. I mean, he's got a wife, he's got a family, he's got parents. He has a job. He's a fisherman. He goes and then destroys his house. He says, well, if you follow me, I can give you a different house. Which is fine. You know, and it makes him sad, but I think he also finds joy in seeing his old life being destroyed. He finds it meaningless or not as fulfilling. And he finds all the uncertainties of Jesus Christ to be profoundly fulfilling. It's not an invitation, you know, that people should just destroy their lives. But what do you think? There are no follow-ups? No footnotes?
No, that was perfect.
Oh, I don't know about that. But
Well, I mean, for what I was looking for, that was, yeah, that was good.